but I hope you get the picture. But what about car accidents, catastrophes, and other misfortunes? To help address these, the Christians use a term called theosity. Theosity. Theos, meaning God, and disi, meaning justice. So the justice of God. Let's take a look. Theodicy, the justice of God, and theo, God, and disi, justice. And this is a theodicy line, you might want to say. I'm going to ask you to put the line up there, Larry, if you would. The theodicy line represents viewpoints, opinions, or perspectives. Now, the first viewpoint to make sense of God's will is deism. Deism says that there is a God out there, and that God created everything in the heavens and the earth. That God refuses to act within the creation that He established. He wants to stand outside creation. And this view says that God does not intervene, or God does not get involved in any way in our lives. Deism, or the deist, looks at God as a clockmaker. He creates the clock, and then He stands outside and watches it tick, because God does not want to interrupt time. Now, I appreciate the deists. They look at God as creator. But I have a hard time believing and worshiping a God who does not intervene into history. After all, we just celebrated Christmas. How Jesus came and intervened into history. And He can intervene in our lives. The second view is hyper-Calvinism. Now, I have real difficulty here, but I love my Calvinist brothers and sisters. For John Calvin, or John Wesley, made many great theological points, but here determinism is very, very important. Determinism is very important in this spot. A friend of mine calls this the puppeteer viewpoint, where we have no free will at all. God determines when and where everything happens. If I had a pencil up here and I dropped that pencil, God predetermined that Wally Williams would drop a pencil, can't read my watch here, at 11:10. At 11:10 at Newworld United Methodist Church. God decided that ahead of time. I have no free will at all in this. If you will, God pulled the strings. I was a puppet. In hyper-Calvinism, God causes everything. Diseases, car accidents, sicknesses, catastrophes. He causes it all. And I have trouble believing and worshiping a God like that. I believe God is loving. I believe God is caring, merciful, and just. And so that leads me to the third view, free will. Free will, in my opinion, balances out deism and hyper-Calvinism. It is the freedom of choice. And this is precisely why I am a Methodist. This is precisely why I'm a Methodist, because of this view. This view to me makes sense because I have freedom of choice. I can drop that pencil anytime I want to drop that pencil. I can pick that pencil up anytime I want to pick up that pencil. You can do things any way you want to do them. But sometimes we abuse our free will. Sometimes we take liberty in that free will. You know, several years ago I was preaching a funeral, officiating at a funeral, and a mother in the grieving congregation came up to me, and she was grieving in her own personal way. And I spoke to her, and she told me about the loss that she recently had. A year ago, from the day of that funeral, her 10-year-old son was out in the driveway riding his bicycle that he just got for Christmas. Just out in the driveway riding his bicycle. And a car came by, jumped the curb, went out of control, hit the tree, and killed the little lad instantly. A policeman was there and saw the entire thing. Matter of fact, he was following the guy because he was weaving. They discovered he was intoxicated. What killed that little boy? Intoxication killed that little boy. The abuse of the freedom of will that you and I have, that's what did it. Many times we blame God for things. He's a big boy, he can handle it. But let's put the blame where the blame belongs. When I was in seminary, 4 of my friends during the summer wanted to make money so they could pay for their books and tuition. And so they were going to roof houses during the summer. Hot work, heavy work. I think I told y'all that I painted horse fences. I think I told you that. But anyway, that was my job to help do it. But anyway, there was a boom on the truck. You put shingles down here, and it was kind of a conveyor belt, and they would go up and they would take the shingles off and put them in strategic places around the roof. And that boom, my good friend and classmate was running that boom. And instead of moving the lever to the left, he moved it to the right. And that boom hit some high voltage wires. And they were electrocuted and killed instantly. Who caused that? Did God or did electricity cause that? Think about it. This is a thinking church. We've got to think about these things and deal with these things appropriately. So that leads me to death. What about death? Who causes that? All I know is that our physical bodies are made not to last forever. That's the way they're made. Our bodies are composed of 1 trillion cells, give or take 1 billion. But I understand that if cancer gets into one of those cells, breaks into one of those cells, that terrible disease will spread. But I also understand that medical science can halt or even eradicate that disease. But I'm also aware of the book of Ecclesiastes. It says there's a time to die. None of us want to hear that. None of us want to hear that. But it's real. It's serious. You know, if you play your cards right, you could live to be 100 years old, or even further. But there's a time to die. Now, I'm not a medical doctor. The MD behind my name stands for Master of Divinity, not medical doctor. But I'm going to tell you what I do know. I know that in the Lord's house are many rooms. And He goes and prepares those rooms. And He prepares a place for us. I do know that He is the resurrection and the life. And those who believe in Him should not die, but last forever. I do know that even though we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, we fear no evil because He is with us. His rod and His staff comforts us. I do know that He is the way, the truth, and the life. I do know that He is the good shepherd, and He will guide and direct us where we go. I do know those things, and you know those things. And you know why I know this? Because of the Scriptures. The same Scriptures that you have. And I know this because of the meal that we are going to receive.